Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Emma Brooks was sitting at a cozy table in a bustling restaurant, her heart racing. She could feel the warmth of the low, ambient lighting and hear the faint clinking of silverware. But it all felt so out of place for her. This wasn't her world. Her dress was second-hand, her shoes scuffed from months of use, and her hands were trembling slightly as she clutched the napkin in front of her. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she would go through with this blind date. But now that she was here, she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. "Table 7, she whispered under her breath, her eyes darting around the room. She spotted him, an impeccably dressed man, sitting alone at the far end of the room. He was focused on his phone, his posture confident. Emma took a deep breath and walked over, forcing a smile. "Hi, you must be Kevin? I'm Emma. Nice to meet you." The man looked up, startled, blinking for a moment as he took her in. Emma mistook his confusion for shyness and sat down across from him. "I know this is awkward. Blind dates are weird, right? Jenny told me you might be a little quiet, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us," she said, laughing nervously. The man, Liam Parker, hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Right, blind dates are something else." He chuckled, amused by her nervous energy, and decided to let her continue. "Tell me about yourself," Emma said, hoping to break the silence. "What do you do?" "I work in tech," Liam replied casually, offering her a soft smile. Emma blinked, slightly thrown off by his vague response. "Tech? Like coding and apps and stuff?" "I'm terrible with computers," she laughed, hoping to make a joke out of it. Liam smiled again, this time genuinely, something like that. He leaned back in his chair, studying her in a way that made Emma feel oddly at ease. She went on, sharing her struggles with paying rent, working multiple shifts as a waitress, and dreaming of one day opening her own art studio. For the first time in a long while, Emma was able to talk freely to someone, not having to hide her true self or pretend to be someone she wasn't. As the conversation flowed, Emma realized just how different Liam was from the men she usually encountered. He didn't care about her income or what she wore. He seemed genuinely interested in her dreams. As they spoke, the initial awkwardness between them started to dissolve. But then, as Emma checked her phone, her stomach dropped. "Hey Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7. "Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Her heart sank as she reread the message. She looked up at Liam, her face turning crimson. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's smile faltered, and guilt flashed in his eyes. "No, I'm not," he admitted. Emma felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I sat at the wrong table," she stammered, standing up quickly. "This is so embarrassing." "Wait," Liam said, standing as well. "It's okay." But Emma was already grabbing her coat, her face flushed with humiliation. She bolted for the door, leaving Liam staring after her, a mix of regret and curiosity swirling inside him. He had intended to correct her from the start, but something about the way she had looked at him, so genuine and unguarded, made him pause. And as she disappeared into the night, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that he would regret letting her go. Emma, on the other hand, arrived at her small apartment, her mind racing. She collapsed onto the couch, groaning in embarrassment. Her roommate, Jenny, peeked over the top of her laptop, an amused expression on her face. "That bad, huh?" Jenny asked, setting her laptop aside. "Worse," Emma admitted, her face still red. "I sat at the wrong table, thought he was Kevin, had a whole conversation with him. And then, when I realized the mistake, I ran out like an idiot." Jenny stifled a laugh. "Sounds like something out of a rom-com." Emma groaned again, hiding her face in a pillow. "I just hope I never see him again," she muttered. Jenny raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that? You said he was nice?" Emma hesitated, lowering the pillow slightly. "He was nice, but it doesn't matter. I made a fool of myself." Jenny shrugged. "Maybe it's not the end of the world. People make mistakes. And hey, if he was as nice as you say, maybe he didn't mind." Emma didn't respond, her thoughts still swirling, but in the back of her mind, she couldn't help but wonder if she'd ever see him again. After Emma rushed out of the restaurant, her heart was pounding with embarrassment. She had never felt so humiliated in her life. She couldn't believe she had sat at the wrong table and spent the whole time talking to a stranger, thinking he was someone else. She replayed the entire conversation in her mind over and over again, cringing at every awkward moment. She had barely made it out of the restaurant before she bolted down the street, desperate to escape the embarrassment. As she reached her apartment, she could barely look at herself in the mirror. "What was I thinking?" she muttered to herself as she collapsed onto the couch. Jenny, her best friend and roommate, was sitting at the kitchen table, eyes glued to her laptop. "Bad night?" Jenny asked, glancing up at her with a smirk. Emma groaned, burying her face in a pillow. "Worse than bad," she said. "I sat at the wrong table. The guy I was supposed to meet wasn't even him. I spent the whole time talking to a stranger." "Can you believe it?" Jenny laughed, but Emma could tell she was trying not to make her feel worse. "What happened after that?" Jenny asked, trying to keep things light. "I just ran out of there like a fool," Emma admitted. "I didn't even give him a chance to explain. I was too embarrassed. God, I feel so stupid." Jenny shook her head, still amused. "You're overthinking it. It was a blind date, right? These things happen." I know, Emma said, lifting her head from the pillow and sitting up. "But what if he thinks I'm crazy? What if he's just going to laugh it off and tell his friends about the weird girl who sat at the wrong table?" Jenny shrugged. "Who cares? You were yourself, right? You didn't pretend to be someone you're not." Emma paused, thinking about that. She had been herself awkward, nervous, but genuine. And something about Liam had made her feel comfortable enough to open up, even if it was only for a brief moment. "I guess," Emma said, her voice trailing off. "But still, I can't help feeling like I screwed it all up." Jenny put down her laptop and walked over to sit beside Emma. "Listen, everything happens for a reason. And who knows? Maybe he'll reach out to you again. You never know." Emma laughed, shaking her head. "I don't think he will. I think I've blown it for good." But as she said those words, something deep inside her stirred. She wasn't sure why, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this wouldn't be the last time she saw Liam Parker. The next day, Emma tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to the conversation she had with Liam. She couldn't stop thinking about how different he seemed from the usual men she met. He hadn't cared about her job or how much money she made. He had listened to her without judgment. That was rare. She found herself wondering if he would ever get in touch with her. But deep down, she doubted it. She had messed up, and that was that. However, as the afternoon wore on, Emma's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She picked it up hesitantly, not expecting much. To her surprise, it was a text from an unknown number. "Hey Emma, this is Liam. I was the guy you sat next to last night. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. How about coffee sometime?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? She stared at the message for a few moments, unsure of what to do. Her first instinct was to delete it and pretend it had never happened. But something inside her told her to reply. "Okay, coffee sounds nice," she typed back, trying to keep her tone casual. It wasn't long before Liam responded, suggesting a time and place. They agreed to meet at a small coffee shop in the city. As Emma prepared for the date, she couldn't help but feel a sense of nervous excitement building in her chest. She hadn't felt this way in a long time. When the day came, Emma arrived at the coffee shop a little early, nervous but hopeful. She had spent the last hour picking out the perfect outfit, something that was stylish but still comfortable. When Liam walked in, he was dressed casually, looking nothing like the polished businessman she had imagined. He wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, looking relaxed and at ease. As soon as their eyes met, Emma felt her nerves start to fade. Liam smiled warmly at her, and she could tell that he wasn't the least bit upset about the mix-up from the night before. "Hi, Emma," he said, his voice soft but confident. "I'm glad you agreed to meet me again." "I'm glad too," Emma replied, smiling. "I owe you an apology for running off last night. I was so embarrassed." Liam chuckled, shaking his head. "Don't worry about it. It was a funny mistake. And besides, I'm just glad we're here now." They sat down and started talking, the conversation flowing easily. Emma found herself laughing at his jokes, sharing stories about her job and her dreams of becoming an artist. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was having a normal conversation with someone who wasn't judging her. She had expected him to be like all the other men she'd met, pretentious and interested only in appearances. But Liam was different. He didn't seem to care about any of that. And for the first time, Emma realized that maybe she had been too focused on the wrong things in her life. Maybe it was time to focus on what really mattered, being true to herself. As the afternoon wore on, Emma and Liam grew more comfortable with each other. By the time they finished their coffee, Emma felt a sense of connection she hadn't experienced in a long time. Maybe this was the start of something new. Maybe, just maybe, The wrong table and the mistaken identity had led to something that was meant to be. The days that followed their coffee date were filled with an unexpected lightness for Emma. She couldn't stop thinking about Liam. It wasn't just the fact that he was charming or handsome. It was the way he had made her feel comfortable, seen, and heard. He didn't treat her like a waitress, or like someone beneath him. He treated her like an equal, something Emma wasn't used to. She had spent years working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, always feeling like she had to prove herself, always striving to show she was worth something. But with Liam, everything was different. He made her feel like she mattered, like her dreams were valid. They exchanged messages over the next few days, talking about everything from music to their favorite books. He even offered to help her with her art, something that both excited and intimidated her. For someone who had spent so much time building walls around herself, it was hard to let someone in, especially someone who seemed to have everything. But with each passing day, Emma found herself looking forward to their next conversation, their next meeting. And then, on a warm Thursday afternoon, Liam invited her to a charity event he was attending. "It's just a small gala," he told her casually. "I'd love for you to come. It'll be fun." Emma hesitated. The thought of attending such a fancy event made her anxious. She didn't have anything to wear, and she wasn't sure she belonged in that kind of world. But Liam was persistent, reassuring her that it would be a casual affair. "Come on, it'll be just like our coffee date," he teased, "except with better food and no awkward mix-ups." Emma laughed, feeling a little more at ease. She agreed to go, even though part of her was still nervous. She spent the next few hours getting ready, searching through her closet for something that would be acceptable. She settled on a simple black dress she had worn a few times before, paired with a pair of scuffed heels that were barely hanging together. When she arrived at the venue, she felt out of place immediately. The grand ballroom was filled with people dressed in sleek, expensive clothes, their conversations full of business deals and high society chatter. Emma stood awkwardly by the entrance, unsure of where to go or what to do. Just as she was about to turn around and leave, she spotted Liam across the room, dressed in a sharp suit that made him look like he belonged in this world. He saw her too and immediately made his way toward her, a warm smile on his face. "I'm so glad you came," he said, his voice genuine. "You look amazing." Emma blushed, unsure of how to respond. "Thanks, but I feel like I'm totally out of my element here," she admitted, glancing around nervously. Liam laughed softly, his eyes sparkling. "Don't worry about it," he said. "Just be yourself. That's what I like about you." As the night went on, Emma started to relax. She found herself chatting with a few of Liam's colleagues, none of whom seemed to care that she wasn't a millionaire or an entrepreneur. They were all kind and welcoming, and Emma realized she wasn't so out of place after all. Liam stayed by her side for most of the night, introducing her to people, making her laugh, and even getting her to dance, despite her lack of confidence. But just as things seemed to be going perfectly, the event took a turn. A man in a tuxedo walked up to Liam, his face serious. "Liam, we need to talk," he said curtly, his tone businesslike. Liam excused himself and followed the man to a quiet corner of the room. Emma watched them for a moment, a strange feeling creeping up her spine. She didn't know why, but something felt off. She tried to shake it off, but the feeling lingered. After a few minutes, Liam returned, his expression darker than before. "Is everything okay?" Emma asked, sensing the shift in his mood. "Yeah," Liam said, forcing a smile. "Just some business stuff. Nothing to worry about." But Emma could tell something was bothering him. She didn't push him to talk, but her curiosity was piqued. The rest of the night passed in a blur, with Emma trying to enjoy herself despite the lingering tension between her and Liam. When the event finally came to an end, Liam walked her to the exit. "I'm sorry about that," he said as they stood outside, the cool night air brushing against their skin. "I didn't mean for you to feel uncomfortable." "It's okay," Emma replied, her voice soft. "I just don't understand what's going on. You were so happy earlier, but then something changed." Liam hesitated, looking away for a moment. "I'm not like everyone else here," he finally said, his voice quieter. "I didn't grow up with money. I didn't have everything handed to me. And sometimes I feel like I'm not really part of this world." Emma's heart softened at his words. She had felt that same sense of not belonging for most of her life, but she had never heard someone like Liam admit it so openly. "I get it," she said, placing a hand on his arm. "But that doesn't change who you are." Liam looked at her, his eyes searching her face. "I know. Sometimes I forget that." There was a long pause, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Emma felt her heart beating a little faster, the connection between them growing stronger with every passing second. Thank you for coming tonight, Liam said finally, his voice warm. It meant a lot to me. Emma smiled, feeling a sense of warmth spread through her. I'm glad I came, she said, her voice genuine. And I'm glad I met you. As she turned to leave, Emma couldn't help but feel like something had shifted between them. Something deeper, something real. She wasn't sure where this was going, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't ready to let go of Liam just yet. The following week passed in a whirlwind for Emma, who couldn't shake the memory of the charity event and the conversation she had with Liam. Ever since that night, something between them had shifted. She found herself thinking about him more than she wanted to admit, wondering if he felt the same. She knew she had no reason to feel so attached to someone she had just met, but every time she saw him or heard from him, it felt like the connection between them deepened. Liam had been texting her more frequently, sending her little notes of encouragement for her art, asking how her day was going, and even suggesting books and music he thought she might like. Each message felt like a lifeline, pulling her further into a world she had never imagined for herself. One afternoon, as Emma was getting ready to leave her shift at the diner, she received a text from Liam that made her heart race. Hey Emma, I've been thinking about you. I know you have a lot going on, but I'd like to invite you to dinner again. This time, I want it to be a little less chaotic. Just the two of us. What do you say? Emma stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over her phone. She had been hoping for a chance to see Liam again, but now that it was right in front of her, she wasn't sure how to respond. She had never been on a second date with someone she barely knew, and the idea of spending another evening with him felt both thrilling and terrifying. After a few moments of hesitation, she typed back, I'd like that. What time? The response was quick. How about 7? I'll pick you up. The excitement in Emma's chest was matched only by her anxiety as she prepared for their date. She spent hours deciding what to wear, unsure of what the right choice would be. In the end, she settled on a simple, elegant dress that made her feel confident but not out of place. As she stood in front of the mirror, checking her reflection for the umpteenth time, she couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. This was a life she hadn't ever dreamed of, a life where someone cared enough to ask her out to dinner, to want to spend time with her. When Liam arrived at her apartment building, he was dressed in a sharp suit, looking as handsome and confident as ever. But this time, there was something different in his eyes, something softer, more genuine. You look beautiful, he said, his voice warm and sincere. Emma smiled, feeling a rush of warmth spread through her. Thank you. You look great too, she said, stepping outside to meet him. As they drove to the restaurant, the conversation flowed easily, just like it had the first time they met. They talked about everything, what she wanted to do with her art, what he had been working on lately, their favorite places in the city. Emma couldn't remember the last time she had felt so at ease with someone. When they arrived at the restaurant, it was a cozy little place with soft lighting and intimate booths. Liam had clearly picked it with care, knowing that Emma would appreciate the quiet atmosphere. Over dinner, they laughed, shared stories, and enjoyed each other's company in a way that felt completely natural. There were no awkward silences, no forced conversations. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she could truly be herself. After dinner, Liam drove her back to her apartment. As they sat in the car, parked outside her building, Emma could feel the tension between them growing. This wasn't just a casual date anymore, it was something more. She could see it in Liam's eyes, feel it in the way he was looking at her. I'm really glad we did this, Liam said softly, his voice low. Me too, Emma replied, her heart pounding in her chest. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out, gently taking her hand in his. I don't want this to be just a one-time thing, he said, his voice sincere. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had been hoping for this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to say. I don't either, she whispered, feeling a surge of emotion. Liam leaned in, his face inches from hers. Then let's not let it end here. And with that, he kissed her softly, the warmth of his lips sending a shiver down her spine. For a moment, everything else faded away. The doubts, the insecurities, the fears, none of that mattered anymore. All that mattered was the connection they shared, the promise of something real between them. When the kiss ended, they sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the moment settling between them. Finally, Liam spoke, his voice filled with determination. I want to see where this goes, Emma. I want to take things slow, but I think there's something special here. Emma nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. I feel the same way, she said, her voice soft but steady. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm willing to find out with you. They shared one more lingering kiss before Emma stepped out of the car and made her way inside. As she closed the door behind her, she couldn't help but smile. Something had changed between them, something real, and for the first time in a long time she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The weeks that followed only deepened the connection between Emma and Liam. Every day, she found herself thinking about him more and more. Their dates became a regular occurrence, each one more relaxed than the last, and their conversations always felt effortless. Liam had continued to support her art, even going so far as to help her set up an exhibition at a local gallery. Emma couldn't believe the generosity he showed, and she often found herself in awe of the life he had offered her, one full of opportunities, warmth, and a love she had never imagined possible. But despite all the good things that were happening, Emma still carried a deep-seated fear that she couldn't shake. She was terrified that Liam might be playing a game with her, that his affection for her might be temporary, something he would move on from whence he got bored. She couldn't shake the thought that she was just some experiment or an object to check off a list for him. After all, he was a billionaire, a CEO, a man who had everything, while she was just a waitress with big dreams. How could someone like him really want someone like her? She tried not to let these thoughts cloud her feelings for him, but every time they went out, she couldn't help but feel like she was living in a fantasy, one that would come crashing down eventually. Liam, on the other hand, seemed completely sure about them. He would talk about their future together as though it was inevitable, and his actions always matched his words. But Emma couldn't help but wonder if he truly understood her doubts, her fears, or if he simply saw her as the perfect addition to his picture-perfect life. One afternoon, after spending a quiet morning together at Emma's apartment, Liam brought up the subject of their future once again. "I've been thinking a lot about us," he began, his voice serious but tender. "I know things have been moving fast, but I want to make sure we're both on the same page. I want this, Emma. I want you in my life. I want to build something real with you." Emma felt her heart skip a beat as his words sank in. She had never heard him speak so plainly, so earnestly. "I want that too," she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm scared, Liam. I'm scared that I'm not enough, that I'll never be enough for you." Liam took a step closer, his expression softening. "Emma, look at me," he said gently. "You are more than enough. You've always been enough. And I don't want anyone else. I want you, just you. I want us to have a future, together." Emma blinked, a tear slipping down her cheek despite her best efforts to hold it in. She had never expected anyone to say those words to her, let alone someone like Liam. She had spent so many years doubting her worth, wondering if she would ever be loved for who she truly was. And now, here he was, telling her that he wanted her, that she was enough. She had never felt so seen, so valued. "I'm sorry," she whispered, wiping her eyes. I don't know if I can believe it." Liam reached out, brushing her cheek gently with his thumb. "You don't have to believe it all at once. But I'll show you, Emma. I'll show you every day how much you mean to me." It was then that Emma realized just how much he cared. He wasn't just saying these things to ease her doubts or make her feel better. He was speaking from the heart, and his actions had always shown that he was serious about her. "I believe you," she said, her voice steady now. "I believe you." Liam smiled, his face lighting up with a warmth that made Emma's heart swell. "Good," he said softly, pulling her into a gentle hug. "Because I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to prove it to you, every single day." That night, as they sat together on the couch, Liam took her hand in his fingers lacing through hers. He leaned in, brushing his lips softly against her forehead. "I know things haven't always been easy for you," he said quietly, "but I want to be here for you, Emma. I want to be the one who lifts you up, who helps you achieve everything you've ever dreamed of." Emma closed her eyes, letting his words wash over her. For the first time in her life, she truly felt like she was worthy of the love she had always longed for. And as she looked up at him, she knew that he meant every word. She wasn't just a passing moment in his life. She was someone he wanted to build a future with, and that was more than she had ever imagined. Over the next few months, their relationship grew even stronger. They faced challenges together, but each obstacle only seemed to bring them closer. Emma's art career began to take off, thanks in part to Liam's support, and she found herself more confident than ever before. Liam was by her side through it all, encouraging her, pushing her to reach her full potential, and reminding her every day that she was enough. It wasn't always easy, but they were learning to navigate their differences and build a relationship based on trust, respect, and love. And as the days went by, Emma realized that she had found something truly special with Liam, something she never thought she deserved. He was everything she had ever wanted in a partner, Kind, understanding, supportive, and most importantly, he saw her for who she truly was. It was everything she had dreamed of and more. As the months passed, Emma and Liam's relationship continued to grow stronger. They became inseparable, sharing everything from quiet moments at home to exciting trips to new places. Emma found herself truly falling in love with him, not just because of his wealth or success, but because of the way he made her feel like she mattered, like she was worthy of everything he had to offer. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was truly seen. And yet, despite all the love and happiness she felt, there was still a lingering fear in the back of her mind. It wasn't about Liam. She knew that he cared deeply for her, but it was the fear that the world they were living in, one of luxury and privilege, wasn't her world. She had spent so many years working tirelessly to make ends meet, constantly fighting for every inch of progress, that the idea of a life of ease and comfort felt almost like a dream she wasn't meant to have. It was hard for her to believe that someone like Liam, with his perfect life and flawless reputation, could want someone like her. She wasn't sure if she would ever fully believe that she belonged in his world. One evening, as they sat together on the couch in Liam's penthouse, the weight of her thoughts seemed to press down on her more heavily than usual. She looked at Liam, who was casually flipping through a magazine, his relaxed posture in stark contrast to the turmoil inside her. She opened her mouth to speak but hesitated. Liam noticed her silence and set the magazine down, his eyes locking with hers. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his voice soft. Emma sighed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she began, her words coming out slowly. "About me, really." Liam's expression softened as he reached for her hand. "What do you mean? I don't know if I'll ever be able to fit into this world," she said quietly, her voice shaky. "I've spent my whole life struggling, working hard just to get by, and now everything feels so different. I'm afraid that one day, I'll wake up and realize I don't belong here. I don't belong with you." Liam squeezed her hand gently, his eyes full of understanding. "Emma," he said softly, "I know you've had a tough journey, but I'm not asking you to fit into any world. I'm asking you to be yourself. You don't have to change for me, or anyone else. I love you for who you are, not for where you came from or what you have. And I'll always love you, no matter what." Emma's heart swelled at his words, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. She didn't need to pretend to be someone else. She didn't need to feel like she had to live up to some expectation. Liam loved her just as she was. "I'm sorry," she whispered, feeling the weight of her insecurities. "I've just been so scared that I'm not enough." Liam shook his head, his expression gentle but firm. "You're more than enough, Emma. You always have been, and I'll spend the rest of my life showing you just how much you mean to me." Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she leaned forward to kiss him softly, feeling the warmth of his love envelop her. In that moment, she knew that she didn't have to be afraid anymore. She didn't have to question whether she was enough because she was, and Liam was there beside her every step of the way. The next day, they decided to take a trip together, a getaway to a quiet beach town where they could spend time alone, away from the distractions of the city. It was a much-needed break for both of them, and Emma was excited to enjoy some peace and quiet, just the two of them. As they walked along the beach, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore filled the air, and the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the water. Liam took Emma's hand in his, and for a moment they walked in comfortable silence, simply enjoying the serenity of the moment. "This is perfect," Emma said, her voice soft as she looked out at the horizon. "I needed this." Liam smiled at her, his eyes filled with affection. "I'm glad. You deserve it, Emma. You deserve everything good that comes your way." As they continued their walk, Emma felt a sense of contentment wash over her. She was no longer afraid of her past, and she wasn't afraid of her future anymore. With Liam by her side, she knew that anything was possible. For the first time in her life, she felt like she had found her place, not just in his world, but in her own. They spent the next few days exploring the town, enjoying each other's company, and creating new memories. When it was time to return home, Emma felt renewed, as though the trip had given her the clarity and confidence she had been searching for. She was no longer the woman who doubted herself, who feared that she wasn't enough. She was strong, confident, and loved. And most importantly, she knew that Liam loved her for who she was, flaws and all. That night, as they sat on the balcony of their hotel room, watching the stars twinkle in the sky, Liam turned to Emma and smiled. "You know," he said softly, "I think this is just the beginning for us." Emma looked at him, her heart full. I hope so, she replied, her voice filled with conviction. Because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Liam kissed her forehead gently, his smile tender. And I'll spend the rest of mine making sure you never doubt that you're enough. With those words, Emma knew that everything was falling into place. She had found the love she had always dreamed of, and she was finally ready to embrace it, fully and without fear. As the months passed, Emma and Liam continued to build their life together, learning more about each other with every passing day. They were growing closer, their bond stronger than ever, and Emma was beginning to feel like she could truly live the life she had once only dreamed of. Still, despite the love and warmth Liam showed her, there were moments when Emma's insecurities would resurface. She'd catch herself wondering if she was really worthy of someone like him, if the gap between their worlds would eventually pull them apart. But every time those doubts crept in, Liam would remind her, with his words and actions, that they didn't matter. He loved her fully and completely. One evening, as they were sitting on the couch in Liam's penthouse, Emma looked at him, her heart filled with both love and a touch of fear. She had never allowed herself to be this vulnerable with anyone before, and yet, with him, it felt so natural. Still, she couldn't help but wonder if there was a limit to how much she could truly give. "Liam," she started, her voice soft but earnest, "do you ever think about the future? About us? Like, really think about it?" Liam looked at her, his brow furrowing slightly, as though he hadn't expected that question. "Of course I think about the future. With you. I can't imagine it without you," he said, his voice steady and sure. Emma hesitated, her eyes searching his face, looking for any sign that his words might be too good to be true. "But what if? What if one day you realize that I'm not enough? What if my past is too messy, too complicated for someone like you?" she asked, the words coming out before she could stop them. Liam's expression softened, and he reached for her hand, gently squeezing it. "Emma," he said softly, "you are more than enough. Your past, your struggles, they don't define you. They've made you who you are, and that's exactly who I want to be with. I don't need perfection. I need you." His words hit her like a wave, washing away the doubts she had carried with her for so long. She had never been told that her past didn't matter, that she didn't have to hide parts of herself to be loved. But here was Liam, standing in front of her, showing her the kind of love that was patient, kind, and accepting. She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she held them back. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if I'll ever fully believe that I'm enough, but hearing you say it means everything." Liam smiled, leaning forward to kiss her forehead gently. "You're not alone in this," he said softly. "I'm here, and I always will be." Emma leaned into him, her heart finally at peace. She had spent so long believing she wasn't worthy of love, that she was just a small piece of a world that wasn't meant for her. But now, with Liam by her side, she knew she could rewrite that story. And as they sat there together, in the quiet comfort of their shared space, Emma felt a sense of calm she had never known before. She was no longer afraid of the future, no longer afraid of what they could become. The love between them was real, and it was something worth fighting for. Weeks later, as the holiday season approached, Emma found herself caught up in the excitement of the season. Liam had invited her to his family's annual Christmas gathering, something she had been both looking forward to and dreading. The idea of meeting his family, of entering their world of wealth and status, made her nervous, but Liam had reassured her that his family would love her just as much as he did. On the day of the gathering, Emma stood in front of the mirror, nervously adjusting her dress. She was wearing a simple but elegant red gown, one she had borrowed from a friend. It wasn't designer, but she knew she looked good in it. She just hoped it would be enough. Liam had already left to prepare for the event, and Emma was about to follow when she stopped herself. "You are enough," she whispered to herself in the mirror. "You belong." When she arrived at the grand estate where Liam's family was gathering, she couldn't help but feel out of place. The mansion was breathtaking, its large windows decorated with twinkling lights and garlands. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and lively, filled with the sounds of laughter and the clinking of glasses. She felt like a fish out of water, surrounded by so much opulence and luxury, but when Liam saw her, he immediately came over to take her hand. "You look stunning," he said, his smile wide and genuine. "I'm so glad you're here." Emma smiled, her nerves easing slightly at the sight of him. His presence always had that effect on her. As the night went on, Emma found herself engaging with Liam's family, and to her surprise, they were kind and welcoming. His mother, in particular, made a point of telling her how much Liam had spoken about her, and how happy he seemed whenever they were together. "He's always been a bit reserved," his mother said with a warm smile. But you, Emma, you've brought him out of his shell. Emma couldn't believe her ears. Here she was, a simple waitress, surrounded by millionaires, and yet they were treating her like she belonged. She felt a sense of pride swell in her chest, knowing that she had earned their respect just by being herself. As the evening came to a close, Liam took her hand and led her out into the garden. The night was cold, but the stars above were clear, and the air felt fresh. "I'm so proud of you tonight," he said, his voice full of affection. "You've done more than just fit in, you've shown everyone who you really are, and that's what matters most to me." Emma looked up at him, her heart swelling with love. "Thank you for everything, Liam," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I've finally found where I belong." Liam smiled, pulling her into a warm embrace. "And you always will, Emma. You're exactly where you're meant to be, right here, with me." As they stood there together, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma realized that this was just the beginning of their story. The future wasn't something to fear, it was something to look forward to, hand in hand with the man who had taught her to believe in herself again. As the new year began, Emma and Liam found themselves in a place they had never imagined. Together, they had grown and changed, their love blossoming in ways neither of them could have predicted. Emma's art was flourishing, her work being displayed in galleries across the city, and for the first time, she was living the life she had always dreamed of. But it wasn't just her career that had changed, it was everything. The fear she once had of not being good enough had faded, replaced by a quiet confidence that came from knowing she had found someone who truly saw her for who she was. And in Liam, Emma had found not just a partner, but someone who understood her, accepted her flaws, and loved her more than she could have ever imagined. But even in the midst of their happiness, a lingering question hung in the air. What comes next? Emma had been thinking about their future, about the life they could build together, and the one thing she couldn't shake was the thought of commitment. She had never been in a relationship this serious before, and the idea of taking the next step of truly and completely joining their lives together was both exciting and terrifying. One afternoon, as they sat together in the cozy living room of their apartment, Liam noticed the distant look in Emma's eyes. "Hey," he said softly, reaching for her hand. "What's on your mind?" Emma hesitated, biting her lip. She knew she couldn't keep her thoughts bottled up any longer. "I've been thinking about us," she said quietly. "About the future, about everything." Liam's eyes softened and he squeezed her hand gently. "What are you thinking?" he asked, his voice filled with patience. "I don't know," Emma admitted, taking a deep breath. "I think I'm just scared. I've never been in a relationship this serious, and I don't know if I'm ready for all the changes that come with it. I love you, Liam, more than anything, but I don't know if I can give you everything you deserve." Liam sat back, his expression thoughtful. "Emma, we've already built something real together," he said, his voice calm but steady. "We've faced challenges, we've supported each other, and we've grown. The future isn't about being perfect, it's about being there for each other, no matter what comes. And I'm ready for that. I'm ready to spend my life with you." Emma felt a weight lift from her chest as she listened to his words. She had always feared that she wasn't enough, that she couldn't keep up with the world Liam came from. But hearing him say this, knowing that he didn't want anything other than her, made her realize that love wasn't about perfection. It was about trust, commitment, and being there for each other through everything. "I'm ready too," Emma said softly, her voice filled with determination. "I've never been more ready to take that step with you." Liam smiled, his eyes lighting up with relief and happiness. "Then let's do it," he said, pulling her closer. "Let's take that next step together. Whatever comes, we'll face it as a team." That evening, as they sat under the stars on the balcony, Emma felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She had once believed that love was something to be earned, something that had to be fought for. But with Liam, she realized that love was something that was given freely, without conditions, without expectations. It was the kind of love that made her feel safe, cherished, and complete. The next few weeks were filled with excitement as Emma and Liam began planning for their future together. They discussed everything from their careers to where they wanted to live, and even their hopes and dreams for the family they one day wanted to build. Emma found herself more confident than ever before, knowing that no matter what, Liam would always be by her side. One evening, Liam took Emma to a beautiful, intimate restaurant, a place they had visited on one of their first dates. As they sat down to dinner, Liam looked at her, his eyes full of love. "There's something I've been thinking about," he said softly. Emma looked up at him, her heart racing. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Liam smiled, taking a deep breath before continuing. I've been thinking about the life we're building together, about everything we've been through and everything we've learned. And I know in my heart that I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Emma's breath caught in her throat, her eyes wide with surprise and anticipation. "Liam," she began, but he stopped her with a soft kiss. "Emma," he said, his voice steady and sincere, "will you marry me?" The words hung in the air, and for a moment, everything around them seemed to fade away. Emma's heart swelled with emotion as she looked into his eyes, the love and devotion she saw there filling her with warmth. "Yes," she whispered, her voice full of certainty. "Yes, I will marry you." Liam's smile was brighter than anything she had ever seen, and as he slipped the ring onto her finger, Emma knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter in their story, one that would be filled with love, challenges, and everything they had dreamed of. Together, they would face the future, hand in hand, knowing that they were ready for whatever came their way. It was more than just a promise, it was a commitment to each other, to their love, and to the life they would continue to build, side by side. The days that followed Emma's engagement to Liam were filled with joy and excitement. As they began to plan their wedding, there was a sense of calm that had settled between them. They were building something real together, a future based on love, trust, and the understanding they had for each other. Emma, who had once felt like an outsider in Liam's world, now felt like she belonged. She had always dreamed of a love that was pure and unconditional, and with Liam, that dream had come true. As the wedding day approached, Emma found herself reflecting on how far she had come. She had once believed that love was something reserved for others, something she could never attain. She had spent years feeling small and unworthy, constantly doubting her place in the world. But now, standing beside Liam, she realized that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about being real, being vulnerable, and allowing someone to see you for who you truly are. The morning of the wedding, Emma woke up to the sound of birds singing outside her window. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow on the room. She had never felt more at peace in her life. She smiled to herself as she thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. There had been struggles, there had been doubts, but through it all, she had found someone who loved her for who she was. She wasn't perfect, but with Liam, she didn't have to be. As she prepared for the ceremony, Emma couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. She was excited, nervous, and overwhelmed by the love that surrounded her. She had never imagined that her wedding day would feel so surreal. It was everything she had ever dreamed of and more. Liam, too, was feeling the weight of the moment. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his suit and trying to calm his racing heart. He had never been more sure of anything in his life than he was of marrying Emma. She had brought a sense of peace into his world, a world that had once been defined by work, success, and expectations. With her, everything felt real, everything felt like it was meant to be. When the ceremony began, Emma walked down the aisle, her heart beating in time with the music. As she looked up at Liam, standing at the altar, she felt her worries fade away. This was it, this was the moment they had been waiting for. When they exchanged vows, Emma could barely hold back her tears. She had never imagined that someone like Liam would promise to love her forever. She had always believed that love was fleeting, something that couldn't last. But Liam had shown her that true love was built on trust, respect, and unwavering commitment. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the room erupted into applause. Emma and Liam stood there, holding each other, knowing that this was just the beginning of their journey together. They were no longer two separate people, living separate lives. They were a team, ready to face whatever challenges life would throw their way. The reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and celebration. Emma looked around at all the people who had come to share in their joy, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a woman who had found love, who had built a life with someone who truly saw her. And that was more than enough. Later that evening, as the last guests said their goodbyes and the music began to fade, Emma and Liam stepped outside into the cool night air. The stars were shining above them, and the quiet of the night seemed to wrap around them like a blanket. "This is just the beginning," Liam said softly, taking Emma's hand in his. "There's so much more ahead of us." Emma smiled, her heart full. "I know," she said, her voice steady with certainty, "and I'm ready for it with you." Liam pulled her close, kissing her gently as they stood under the stars. The future was wide open before them, and together they knew they could face anything that came their way. Emma had found her home in Liam's arms, and as they walked into their new life together, she knew that their love would continue to grow, continue to thrive for the rest of their days. They were ready for whatever came next, because they had each other, and that was all they ever needed.